All right, week 3. Just so right off the bat, I'll mention this again at the very end, but our first exam is coming up next week. It's pretty soon. So if you have not started watching the lecture videos or anything like that, make sure that you're doing that soon. If you need something to feel thankful for, if you're like, this online class is miserable, if you need to feel thankful for anything, my Mini 1 Biology 103 class has already had their first exam. Their second exam is next week. So it could be worse, I promise. But what I just got done telling them is the number one thing you can do if you're not doing it already is make sure you are watching the lecture videos. I know those PowerPoints are up there and you can skim through those and read them and feel like you're learning a lot. But the whole point of college is you need someone to explain the material to you. I'm not saying you can't learn it on your own, but it helps to have someone who's familiar with it say, all right, this is why this is important. Like, here's the facts on the PowerPoint, but here's why you need to know this. This is how this fits into the big picture. And here's some clues and tips to help you really learn it. That's what you get with the lecture videos. So if you have just been watching or been reading the PowerPoints, you're not getting the whole picture. I really think it would be good to make sure you're watching every single one of those lecture videos. And really, especially on this week's, on the chemistry chapter, that can be kind of confusing if you try to do it on your own. But if you have someone sort of explain it, it makes it a lot easier. All right. So do that this week. Even feel free to go back and watch the lecture videos from the last couple chapters if you haven't done that already. But just be getting ready for the test. So your next exam, or your first exam, is next week. It's on chapters 1, 15, 19, and 2. You should have already covered 3 of those, so we've only got one more chapter this week. And then just spend the rest of the week going back and reviewing all that material and letting me know if you have any questions. All right? So what I want you to do this week, watch the chapter 2 lecture videos. So this one's going to be on chemistry. If chemistry intimidates you, don't get scared. For 1 year of my life, like the longest, most miserable year of my life, I taught 7th and 8th grade science at a middle school. And the type of chemistry that we're covering in this chapter is like even lower than what we covered in that middle school chemistry. So it's just the basics. These are some of the things you're going to need to know for later in the semester, because your body is made up of chemicals. Living things are made up of molecules, so we need to learn a little bit about the basics of chemistry. All right. So watch those lecture videos. After you have done that, there is an exam 2 review quiz over in the quizzes tab to the left. So just take that after you watch the videos. All right. Big thing is that we've got our first lab this week. You should have already done the prerequisites. You should have signed up for SI Cloud. I know like a couple weeks ago, I sent everybody an email if you haven't signed up for that yet, or if you haven't done the prerequisites yet. So I'm really hoping all that's behind you. If you have not got your lab kit yet, number one, if you've got to order it, it's not going to come in time, but you still have to order it because that makes up such a big chunk of our points. If anyone has not ordered their lab kit yet, what I want you to do is reach out to our bookstore, like on campus, and see if they have any lab kits on the shelf that you can buy and bring home with you. Because that's why I mentioned, like, even before the beginning of the semester, you got to order those because they can take a little while to come in. All right. But if you've done all that and you're ready, you can go ahead and get started. So this lab is a good introduction. It's about the scientific method, which is something we talked about in chapter 1. So it's going to have a couple examples where you're going to design your own experiment. You don't actually have to do it on exercise 1, but you're just going to write, like, this is how I would test this certain hypothesis, or how I would conduct this study. On part 2, you are going to have to get information. It's going to ask you to get body measurements, so height, wingspan, which is fingertip to fingertip. You're going to do the length of your forearm, and then forearm to the elbow to tip of your finger, your forearm plus your hand. You're going to have to get body measurements from 30 different people. Now, that's a lot, and I'm not expecting you to stand at the door at Walmart and say, hey, excuse me real quick, can I measure you? That's a weird thing to do. You might get the police called on you if you do that. So the way I want us to do this to help each other out, there are 32 people in this class, and if we all just measure ourselves and share that information, we've got enough information to do this lab. So what you can do, go to the discussion board tab to the left. Down at the bottom, I've got a discussion board that says body measurements for lab 1 or something like that. So I've already posted that. I've shared my body measurements. Everybody else, share your body measurements. If you have family members that they don't mind you measuring them, you can get their measurements, add it there. And then by the time we're all done, we're going to have way more measurements than we need, and you can just get it from there. You don't have to go actually measure people yourself. You can also feel free to make a post on social media and get people to self-report those measurements. So there's a lot of ways to get that information, and I've tried to make it as easy as possible on you. Just make sure that you do that early because it's going to take a little while. The labs are not super quick, because we're not meeting in a classroom and like you don't have an instructor there to explain it to you. So you've got a lot of reading the introduction and instructions to do. Just give yourself plenty of time. I can't remember, but I think it says give yourself like 3.5 hours to complete this lab. I would give myself at least that much time. And if it doesn't take that long, great. You get done a little early. You just don't want to be pressed for time and it's like past midnight when the due date was and you're still working on the lab. So that's due this Sunday, but I would go ahead and start on it early in the week. All right. That way, if you run into any issues or if you need help, I'll be able to reach out. Or you can reach out to me and I'll be able to help you. All right. So that's it for this week. Watch chapter 2, do that review quiz. We've got our first lab. Just one last reminder, your first exam is next Monday and Tuesday, January 30th and 31st. So be studying for that. If you haven't noticed this yet, when you go to the Learning Materials tab, click on the Unit 1 folder, and there's a study guide down at the bottom, which is like an outline of everything we covered in all these chapters. So you can use that to prepare and get ready for the test. All right. If you need any help with anything, let me know, and I'll be glad to help. Thanks.